your Shadow. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong with his decks.
Yeah, Ender mentioned himself there's a lot of risk of backfiring. These are decks that essentially can beat themselves. And we were talking a lot a while ago about how there are many APAC players that bring wacky, unorthodox decks to big tournaments. And we haven't seen that as much from the players, specifically from ANZ. But if they have one representative to be the kind of out-of-the-box player, that's definitely Ender for this tournament.
Yeah. And I would think that if Ender's decks work properly, he has an edge. And you know, he obviously has experience with these decks and pilots them well.
Yeah, Ender always is on High Legend, and he keeps tweeting about new decks that he's come up with. He's one of the people I net deck for sure for new stuff, and I saw him tweeting quite a bit about Cthulhu Druid being the nuts. So if he can make it all the way to this deck, then we might be seeing more of that on ladder as well. And looks like he's leading off with that deck. Exactly.
Well, Glory has a Barnes in opening hand. Ender does have Spiteful Summoner, but he's also drawn one copy of Ultimate Infestation.
It's that really, really sinking feeling you have every turn until turn 6, praying that you don't draw the second one.
And beyond that, he just has to worry about Glory snowballing a board because he has Barnes plus Eternal Servitude. So he's going to be able to pull a minion from his deck and then res it with Eternal Servitude, draws Obsidian Statue, so that increases the chance that he gets Yashiraj from Barnes. And this Druid deck has no removal. It is all minions, except for the Ultimate Infestations. So once you fall behind on board, it is almost impossible for you to come back outside of a big Spiteful Summoner pickup. So, okay, Obsidian Statue.
Okay, so Ender can win a 50-50 to have his Ooze survive, but it's not as consequential as the coming turns when he has to figure out a way to deal with the Resurrected one. And I think that pulling something... okay, so the number of 10 drops that can contest the 4-8 is quite high, but then they just die off the trade. So it's going to be up to Ender to draw the follow-up for the Spiteful Summoner.
He's got to play it now. I was thinking Spellbreaker, but he doesn't want to risk drawing Ultimate Infestation before he wants to play it. So he's going to get it.
Ultrastar making another appearance today. So the way this works out is that he can still play the Spellbreaker next turn. Yes, the Obsidian gets the free trade on the Spiteful, but at least it makes sure that his Ultrasword can survive. Barring the Shadow Word Death, of course, which he didn't know was in hand, but Glory gonna have a pretty good time this game, I should say.
Yeah, now Ender can just present threat after threat after threat over and over again, but the way Big Priest works nowadays, as we've talked about multiple times in the broadcast, is that it can also present threat after threat. Long gone are the days where Big Priest had 8 threats, and once you got through the big minions plus the resurrections on the big minions, you were good. You were smooth sailing. But now with the Spellstone introduced, you have to worry about waves and waves of these big threats. But, well, Mind Control Tech, I probably won't get value. It's rare that the board gets bigger than 3.
Yeah.
Big Priest.
And that the Spellstone gets all the way upgraded to that point.
Yeah.
Still, though, it's something that Glory has to keep in mind because, again, Ender has some interesting not only deck choices, but tech choices.
Yeah. You kind of have to. Especially if you don't go for the Cthulhu package in this type of deck, it's literally like 25 tech cards. Spiteful Summoners and Ultimate Infestations. I guess that would be 26 tech cards, but you need some ramp in there as well. So it's actually pretty nuts. But like players have had success with those types of decks.
100%. Like people would, start their idea and thought process for making a new deck with, well, Spiteful Summoner is really, really good.
Yeah.
So is Ultimate Infestation, and they're really good together. So now what are the best 26 cards I can put together to support that?
And there's not really 26 tech cards that you can put, so that's where the Cthulhu evolution came from. People just realized, I don't have anything else I can put in here, and I have like 8 slots open. So you might as well put in some synergies. And it's actually kind of funny because we were talking with Ender backstage, and Cthulhu actually comes out buffed, he said, when it gets pulled from Spiteful Summoner.
Really?
That's what he said. I didn't believe him, but I've never seen that interaction.
Never seen that, and
but he seems pretty confident that it does.
I thought that any Cthulhu synergy buffs the Cthulhu that's in your deck, but it says no matter where it is, so even if
wherever
it's in the code of the game.
even if it doesn't exist.
That seems like some philosophical thing now. And now the MC tech gets some value, and that is the worst outcome. Pretty unfortunate for Ender there. And we saw some interesting turns from Glory where he had the option to use Shadow or Death to remove either the Ultra Star or the Doom Caller, but he instead just kept going for building minion pressure of his own, realizing that Big Priest this late in the game can very well fight for the board and then just use a Spell Stone to consolidate that, but it's a little bit punished by the Mind Control deck, but definitely not as bad as it could have been.
Yeah. If you had pulled Lich King, that would have been a pretty big deal because you would have to kind of double trade and hope that your Obsidian statue hits a reasonable target. But oh man, Death and Decay
Still
is
seeing a full clear with Pint-Sized Horror and then double trade. Oh, actually just single trade. You can trade the 4-1 into the 7-1 and the Death Rattle clears the 7-5 after the Pint-Sized Horror.
well, he could do Death and Decay and then just trade one the Obsidian statue and be left with 4-3.
Sure.
And deal 3 damage to his opponent's face as well.
Yeah, definitely a play that leaves more to be done with the turn, but what else does he actually want to do with this mana?
He can Greater Healing Potion his Obsidian statue.
4-3-1, yeah, okay. And that puts it out of Ultimate Infestation range.
Or he can heal Shadow or Death, value trade. But then your second Obsidian statue is vulnerable to the hero power, because you can hero power and then play a minion as opposed to the other way around. So I guess this works too.
I'm not too sure about that. At least with the hero power play, you would have made it like if you force your opponent to hero power, then they can't ultimate infestation. This way, he's kind of just feeding a really convenient UI here. So I would have either liked to see the greater healing potion, or the play that you suggested.
The Great Healer Potion. I think you had it right the first time.
Yeah. It is pretty great, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty great. Ooh.
So now a bevy of options for Ender. I don't think the Cthulhu is big enough for him to want to play it here.
He can play, well, he can play the Twin Imps.
Right, yeah.
If he played Disciple of Cthulhu, but he's just going to go wide with some of the smaller stuff. And I think that's a wise choice. He's making some progress.
This looks like the turn to go for the Hindsight and Horror. That way you can push face for 5. The thing is, he would love to be able to equip this Frostmarn and start going face with it. So, do you ever circle plus embrace, or the other way around? So
Embrace Circle is a full clear because he could Embrace Circle, then trade in his Obsidian statue to the Cthulhu's Chosen, which would have lost its Divine Shield, and then still play Frostmourne. Or he could even Frostmourne down one of the minions. Like he could Frostmourne down Kun, and that way it resummons. No, I guess he couldn't do that because the Kun would die.
Chosen would, yeah.
Yeah.
This way, it seems even better because he gets the board back and completely to himself. And Ender playing from behind this way, I really don't think there's any way he can come back, no matter how big the Cthulhu gets.
I don't know, he can get pretty large.
I mean, like, with the access to... I mean, if he had infinite buffs, sure, but...
Yeah, just a 12-12 is not going to be enough to clear up this board state. There's a 20 health being represented. Maybe he can clean up next turn with Cthulhu? It would die because the Obsidian statue would die.
Now is the Potion Horror turn, surely. I've been suggesting it for how many turns?
Yeah.
But finally, I feel like this is the best play. And it's just going to be lights out over the next few turns.
Yeah.
Next turn. That's just how things work when Big Priest gets the Barns and gets the Eternal Servitude.
And Cthulhu Druid no longer has a 100% win rate at HCT Sydney. It is now 50%, currently 1-1. So Glory taking a big win with Big Priest.
That's right, and he still has some decks that he might struggle with left though, so particularly I'm looking at this Paladin. I feel like it's just going to have a hard time against not only the Cthulhu Druid from Ender, but also perhaps a Secret Mage. Because outside of the equality consec, you don't have, or equality pyro, you don't have much board clear. He's not running the Nazoth package for additional healing from Mistress of Mixtures and things like that. So I feel like it would struggle a bit more against aggressive decks.
It can, but if you get like one call to arms off that pulls a Dirty Rat, you're pretty good against aggressive decks. We saw it earlier on in the tournament. Secret Mage has actually been struggling against Control Paladin, but it has been the adaptation versions of Control Paladin. Whereas I believe Glory does not. He has Blessing of Wisdom in that one slot. So I guess he does have sort of a counterspell fodder. But you need some way, and he actually has Hydrologist too, so there's a few ways for him to sort of get through that in the early game if he wants to. But if you get a call to arms off, you're a lot of times smooth sailing in that matchup. And then if you ever get to a point where you can play Uther, that huge 20 health swing is almost impossible to deal with because you can't win the race at that point. So
that's right. It can usually outlast no matter how much burn Mage can put out in one turn.
I think it's still Secret Mage favored, but not nearly as much as some of the other sort of aggressive lineups.
Right, and on that other end, Ender also still has his Murloc Paladin, which, again, I feel like the Paladin might have a bit of trouble dealing with for similar reasons. Maybe it doesn't have the same burn potential, but it does have way more reload potential than the Mage would in terms of board clears. So if Glory misses out on that early call to arms, it may snowball really, really quickly.
All right, but looks like we're getting into game number 2. Glory on this Control Mage.
Yep.
And Ender, once again, tossing out the Druid.
Yeah, and I honestly have no idea how this matchup works.
Neither do I.
But I imagine Spiteful on 6 is still pretty good.
I don't think it's ever bad unless you draw both Ultimate Infestations before your Spiteful Summoners.
Like the refill potential is a little bit less for the Druid in terms of board presence than it would be for a Spiteful Priest.
Yeah.
And because of that, the Mage's AoEs will find targets and be able to reduce everything on board. The question is if they can do that consistently enough to beat Ultimate Infestation, because in that case, the threats will come one turn after another. Although Glory gets a pretty good start with Arcanologist on 2, and Ender missing out on, I guess, the ideal 2-drop start, or rather a Greedy Sprite to help him ramp into the Summoner. But still, it's a curve that you can't complain about.
That's what the deck is designed to do. Designed to just sort of scale up the curve. 3-mana play, 4-mana play. Not really many 5-mana plays. I actually don't think there's a 5-mana minion in the deck, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I guess it's built with the thought in mind that you either have played Mire Keeper or Greedy Sprite by then, so you just get the 6 and then play your Summoner.
And I definitely like the way Ender's playing this is don't trade minions, just go face. Because a lot of times the first board clear that comes out is Dragon's Fury, and that's going to clear your opponent's board anyway. And you want to be the one putting on pressure turn after turn after turn. So definitely like how he's playing this. He could have, sort of protected himself from a ping, but missing that damage and eventually giving your opponent like a better Dragon's Fury, I just don't think is the right way to go about the matchup.
Right, and the way that Glory's played, which is drawing the secret and then drawing with Cold Light Oracle, means that forcing a ping means that he needs to unload the coin and, I guess, play a secret on top of that. And you don't really want a coin too early in this game, because usually the coin can get you one turn closer to Blizzard or Flame Strike, which are crucial for dealing with the board.
Or being able to play Jaina and coin hero powering in the same turn.
Do you hear its call?
Cthulhu's getting big.
Real thick. And I haven't seen a Cthulhu, honestly, in just ages, so if it actually gets
there it
to
is
come
right
out
there,
and
you just
close
saw
the
it.
game. On
Oh,
the
there it is
actual
again.
board. Okay, I stand corrected, sit corrected, whatever you like, TJ. Oh, that's really unfortunate.
Andrew gives the double thumbs up to the camera. He's like, okay. we're in there. And Malfurion the Pestilent drawn as well, so that's a ton of additional pressure when you get that online. And again, just scaling up the curve. Because 3 damage a turn, especially against a deck like this, with the Control Mage is huge, because you're constantly putting them on a clock that isn't affected by their removal spells, because it's kind of damage from hand, because it just sort of comes out of nowhere. And Glory's sort of forced to play this sort of removal style game, and Ender's going to be playing threats and also pushing damage each turn. Oh, but
yeah, I like this.
Yeah,
Push for the 7 right now.
Yep, I do as well.
Good meter placement, of course, makes it even more awkward for Glory to deal with. He might just be forced to play out Blizzard again.
Ender also has additional damage from hand with Disciple of Cthulhu.
That Panda's burst.
It is. Is a panda. I forgot about that.
I don't see any plays other than Blizzard, do you? He's actually choosing to give Ender a block pop, given that he could have just played a panda here. I guess it's the only way for him to...
It's even a pop at 1.
Yeah.
Because he can fit in the hero power as well, so this is quite bad for Glory. He's even a turn away from being able to play Alex Straza, so I think he might just be dead.
Yeah, that's just it.
Unless he picks up something that can stall, but he would need to remove the board, and he would need to find a way to
Heal up. So
heal
it
up.
would have been Artificer, exactly.
Yeah, Artificer, and he just goes ahead and pings his face, and as quickly as it started, it's over. And the Cthulhu Druid showing why it's powerful. Just keep playing minions all the way up the curve, and Ender liked the face damage push early on in the game. That gave him the opportunity to pop the block, and sort of the exact turn that he needed to. But I think even if he didn't, he still would have been smooth sailing, because he had so much to follow it up. Even if Glory was able to play Alex Straza on the turn that his block was popped, there still would have been so much pressure coming back at him the other way. So
I'm just upset that I didn't see Cthulhu in the way that I meant to see it.
Wherever it is. Just in the fact that Cthulhu gets buffed wherever it is, you see it wherever it is. In the graveyard, in the code, in the hand,
Mind,
in the deck.
dark corners under your bed.
Yeah. He's lurking, waiting to shoot void missiles.
Question is
at
whether
you.
it still gets buffed even when it's rotated to wild.
Whoa.
Wherever it is, right? Even in wild.
Well, because all the cards that buff it also get rotated, so
Unlucky.
he'll never get buffed again. And that was the end of Cthulhu. But now we're down to sort of the best of 3. Ender with Priest Paladin remaining, Glory with Paladin and Mage remaining.
Right, and if you're Ender, I think you're feeling pretty good about the Paladin at some point, just because Murloc Paladin has been so dominant as an aggressive deck recently with the refill potential in Call to Arms, and also just if you stick Murlocs and get to play Cold Lights here to buff them out of range, it just makes a lot of the AoE awkward.
Yeah, or even Gentle Megasaur. Sometimes that can get the job done. It just has a lot of reload potential. It can turn small threats into big threats. And that gives it game against not only other aggressive decks, because it gets on the board so quickly and so powerfully, but also against controlled decks, because you can make their, like you said, their removal spells quite awkward with a lot of the tools you have at your disposal.
Right, and Ender also still has his Priest, I believe, which I feel like is just very similar to the Cthulhu Druid, but it does it better.
Yeah.
In terms of just like, yes, you don't have Ultimate Infestation, but you have more spells to combo with your Spiteful Summoner, and those spells generate minions of their own when played individually. So I feel like if the Mage struggled against the Cthulhu Druid, it's also going to struggle against that Priest.
We'll see.
That is quite the opener for the Paladin. The Murloc Paladin, rather.
Yeah, Glory draws Dirty Rats, which can sometimes be good. But a lot of times you want to pull those out against aggressive decks from Call to Arms, because it's just sort of a 2/6 taunt.
That's free with no Battlecry downside.
Yeah, no downside. So, and that's just the curve right there.
Yeah.
And maybe you have to play Dirty Rat here, because you just want to stop what your opponent is trying to do. Ah, well, hero power,
It's
not
actually
the strongest play here.
a good Dirty Rat. Definitely better than the War Leader because now the Murloc Tidecaller doesn't get the health buff, which is crucial for it to be able to attack into the Dirty Rat twice. Now Glory, he can go for Hydrologist plus another, plus the secret that comes off of it. Instead choosing to get rid of the Protector right away, even though it's overkill with a weapon. What do you think?
It gets it online so that way he has the next turn and he has mana freed up to be able to call to arms.
Sure.
I think that's the biggest, even if it's not the strongest play, it sets you up for the strongest play going into the next turn. So I definitely like the way he's played this, but call to arms again, not as powerful when you've drawn both your Dirty Rats.
Yeah, he's thinking about going for the Consecration for the full clear here.
So he's going into turn 4.
Yeah, so the thing is, okay, what is the worst result your call to arms can pull? Actually not that bad, and you still have the Rallying Blade to deal with the War Leader, and it's because he chose to play Rallying Blade over Hydrologist, as you said, that he has the freedom to play call to arms, and a lot of the time, the one who calls to arms first has an advantage, barring a Knife Juggler.
We'll see, Ender already mouthing over it. He's ready. That's a great outcome.
Yeah. So Glory would have to pull a Knife Juggler of... Wait, he doesn't play that, of course. So...
that would be a sick tech.
yeah. Just for call to arms. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because these minions are not Dirty Rats, Ender's juggles could be really, really relevant here. Clearing up everything from Glory's side of the board. He gets 3 juggles this turn if he wants to take them. Alternatively, he could get 1 juggle plus the Rallying Blade.
Yeah, he could also Spellbreaker. Spellbreaker sort of acts as a juggle if you Spellbreak with the Righteous Protector. But it looks like he is going for Rallying Blade.
Very unlucky where the juggle landed there, but he's still able to clear out yeah, the Argent Protector, and I imagine you use the weapon to get rid of the Pyro, and then... Oh, okay, I was thinking about leaving the Loot Hoarder up.
And leaving the Divine Shield on the Righteous Protector?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that could have been good. Would allow him to push a little bit of face damage too, but decides to clear up the board entirely.
I wonder what that was playing around. Not quite sure because the Loot Hoarder would have made the trade anyway. So
Yeah.
I would have liked to see a face hit there with the Righteous Protector. Well, anyway, Glory, I guess he's forced to just go for Bully and second Righteous Protector. He could risk the Rat again, but follow-up to it is also Righteous Protector and Hydrologist. So I guess the Rat makes more sense because it allows you to go wide, and the 2 attack versus 4 attack doesn't matter on this board. It's only punished, of course, by whatever comes out of the Rat.
Yeah, that's actually a tough choice. Righteous Protector almost always comes down. But maybe he wants to evaluate first. Not that it changes the play. Does get Spellbreaker. I didn't even see, was that Redemption?
Yeah,
picked that
that
very
was
quickly.
lightning fast. And this play also is better against Divine Favor, of course, because you play more cards out of your hand. So I can definitely see this.
Does pick up the 1-drop to get the 2 extra juggles.
I wonder if you should be trading into the Dirty Rat first, because on the off chance that both juggles land on the Righteous Protector, you'd rather resummon the Dirty Rat in case of redemption than the Righteous Protector.
Yeah.
But in that case, the minion trade into the Divine Shield was a bit weird, because he was first playing around Noble Sacrifice, so sometimes Paladin Secrets can trip you up as well. It's difficult to say. The decision between playing around Noble and Redemption is usually what it comes down to. Oh, the snipes, though. Those are world champion juggles right there.
Yeah. Knife Juggler wasn't performing up until that very moment. and got the job done. So Ender just continuing to push and has this wide board state that Glory currently doesn't have an answer to and doesn't pick up an answer to.
This had to be the other consecration. We saw one used already, and Glory hasn't drawn too much through his deck, so Ender was pretty confident about going wide there. And even if it did get cleared, he would have Hydro plus Secret plus Divine Favor to kind of refill. So seems like Ender has been comfortable throughout this whole game, and it's just a little more now to clear it out.
Two opportunities for lethal here.
Yeah.
With Juggles
And the Megasaur
and Megasaur.
and the buff.
I think he has 12 on board. Hits a Juggle to face, so he has 6, 10.
Just
Yeah,
a
12.
lot of outs. Okay,
Oh, he
those
needed
are not
anything.
damage, but he still gets another 2 Juggles from the Megasaur. So I guess you just take Divine Shield and
Yeah.
go with it.
If one of these Juggles goes face,
There you go.
there you have it. Glory concedes. Ender goes up 2-1 in the series on match point with just the Spiteful Priest remaining.
And that's a good deck to have last, at least for your morale. Just because the deck feels strong.
Yeah.
And especially strong against, I guess, some of these control decks from Glory that are less prepared to deal with big minion after big minion.
Yeah. I would say so.
Yeah, and it's very different from the last time we saw Glory on stage with some really, really slow matches. Ender's decks are bringing games to a close in the blink of an eye. And he still looks completely energetic despite the whole day either waiting in the player's room and talking about Hearthstone nonstop, still playing at the top of his game. And you love to see that.
Yeah, literally been talking about Hearthstone all day. And Glory's kind of just been, chillaxing a little bit, hanging out in the beanbag chairs.
Yeah. You do love those beanbags. I feel like you bring them up any chance you get.
Ah, they're great. I took like a small nap on the beanbag chairs earlier, and it did not feel rejuvenating at all.
Okay. Yeah, I'm more of a couch person myself.
But
naps.
it's still just, it felt great. So,
They just feel homey. Beanbags.
yeah, even though I've never owned a beanbag chair in my life, somehow it feels homey. But Ender currently on match point against Glory. We'll see if he can close it out. For now, we're going to have to go to a short break, but don't go anywhere. More HCT Sydney right after this.
The Sydney HCT stop is proudly supported by McDonald's Australia.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sydney HCT Stop. I'm CJ, joined by Gia, and we're about to get into what could be the last game of the series between Ender and Glory.
That's right. Ender is up 2-1, and he's been taking quite a few quick wins. And these decks that he said were possibly gonna backfire haven't backfired, aside from that first game with the Cthulhu Druid. And it's not like it backfired for the reasons he was implying, which is like the possibility of drawing into double ultimate infestation. It was just that I guess the Big Priest draw was a little bit too good. And Big Priest is actually another one of those decks that can backfire pretty spectacularly.
Yes. Maybe not as much as Cthulhu Druid, I would say. And now we'll be seeing that deck from Ender. Well, a similar kind of deck than his Druid deck from earlier, which is the Spiteful Priest, which is kind of, as you mentioned, just sort of a more consistent version of that type of deck. Because you have additional spells to be able to couple with it.
But the early game principle is very much the same. You want to curve out with your minions that are very well statted for their costs, or they have amazing upsides like North Shore Cleric. They always have it on one. Frodan was right. And then you curve into Spiteful Summoner, and for Ender, he can coin it out on turn 5, so that's going to be quite difficult for the mage to deal with. However, Glory at least has Doomsayer.
Yeah. The Doomsayer not the greatest against Northshire Cleric, because at the very least you can attack into the Doomsayer and heal it to at least get a card draw out of Northshire Cleric. But he will be able to play this on turn 2, or turn 3, to hopefully get these 2 minions. And this deck, of course, lacks spells outside of Free from Amber and Mind Control, because that's how the deck works. So there's not going to be a way that Ender can remove it.
Yeah, I think the resurgence of Doomsayer in popularity is largely due to these spiteful decks that sacrifice, I guess, some early game snowballing in favor of getting to Spiteful earlier. And also because we've seen the nerf to patches, it's much more difficult to remove. Turn 1 Doomsayer didn't go off. Turn 2 even.
Yeah. A little breath of fresh air, but he's going to be met with a giant Twilight Drake.
Yeah, and nothing to do on turn 4. That feels awful, man. Not even a secret.
Well, it's it's pretty common for the deck, I feel.
Sure. Arcanologist.
Arcanologist and Ice Block. That's it. That's about it.
Okay. Raven.
Oh, yeah. Raven. Yeah, that's right.
I'm glad it came on right in time for me to have some argument against you.
But of course, you're not really going to win any Ravens in this matchup, because your highest spell is 7, and their lowest spell is 8. So unless they've drawn all their spells, then you're not going to get it. And now, Ender are going to continue this pressure train with Spiteful Summoner.
And whatever comes out is most likely going to get Meteor down. So, Rock Face.
Yeah, that's definitely getting Meteor down.
Yeah.
And now if Ender wants to play around Meteor, he probably wants to trade Twilight Drake, because that way Spiteful Summoner survives. But I guess either way,
it's a 4 damage bonus?
It's a 4 damage bonus, because it would probably get pinged the turn after that, or AoE down. So keeping the Twilight Drake healthy is probably better in the long run than keeping the Spiteful Summoner alive but not pushing damage. And it would have to be exactly Meteor that player would be playing around, so.
Yeah, I don't mind the face attack at all. So Glory doesn't have much other choice here unless he wants to polymorph the Rod Face and then save the Meteor for the Twilight Drake. But it seems counterintuitive, removes less damage in the immediate turn, so that made a lot of sense.
Once upon a time.
Do you just laugh whenever you see Temporis? And
Nosdormu, yeah.
All the
These are the meme options.
I was going to say the time options, but sure, the meme options. Probably even the more accurate term.
Meme is time, but he takes the boring option, which is Bookworm.
You say that with such contempt, TJ. I heard it dripping
I do.
from your voice.
Yeah. Bookworm does have value, though. It can kill a Doomsayer.
Sure.
It's removal in a deck that has no removal, I suppose. Like single target removal in a deck that has no single target removal outside of Mind Control. And now, really, the only choice is to Blizzard.
Yeah.
Or Polymorph, I guess. Polymorph has a lot of value, but Polymorph is probably necessary to hold on to for when inevitably bigger minions come out
From the Free from Amber.
from Free from Amber or from Spiteful Summoner, or once you play your Alexstrasza and Ender plays Grand Archivist and steals it.
It might be that Glory feels so far behind though that he has to hope that those cards aren't in hand, because Blizzard here is a very, very temporary solution. It actually doesn't clear anything off the board. Once the Twilight Drake is unfrozen, the same problem persists. But I can see this because he's able to pair it with the Arcane Artificer, and outside of single target removal, like the Bookworm, Ender can't deal with it conveniently. And there is no way for Glory to know that he actually had the Bookworm in hand. So yeah, another spike pick working out for Ender there. And yeah, just forced to go for Syndragosa, but this gives Ender a nice window to start pushing for face damage.
Yeah, definitely.
Even more.
But Glory does have sort of that package that he needs to be able to deal with it with Frosted Jaina plus Alexstrasza. But he can stifle the comeback and pressure with Twilight Acolyte.
Yeah, Swap Man on an 8/8 feels pretty good. I think Ender's just deciding on whether he wants to start with the Draconid Operative this turn. Or
Yes.
Song Stealer for one of the tokens.
Let's just assume Twilight Acolyte
Did,
Have you ever
and I feel awful. Hot pocket me.
I don't think I even know what girl kobolds look like.
Me neither. And I feel awful.
Zola the Gorgon. Just felt like saying it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's implications.
It's probably not good enough this turn. Nor is Alexstrasza, nor is Frostless Jaina even. Jaina puts him back to 18, and then he can trade off the 3/2, and that would still leave.
It would be still enough
21.
damage for lethal, yeah.
So he's forced to polymorph on the 8/4 Kobold, because we don't know if it's a dude
Yes.
or a dudette.
No, then he's still dead.
After trading. Oh yeah.
Be exactly 13 damage still left on board.
So, but with the polymorph, he can fit the block in at least.
The block, yeah. And plated beetle as well to trade in.
Yep. But
So-
it definitely feels like just delaying the inevitable. He's not even had the time to ping away the token to try and find some sort of miracle legendary, although I'm really not sure what can save him in this position.
There's probably a few things.
Okay.
Ragnaros Light Lord, Tinkmaster Overspark, which I always just blanket say, even though it probably has no effect. Deathwing,
Deathwing.
who knows?
Of course. Deathwing's the instant answer for what card could possibly help me here. It's
Yeah.
probably most likely the answer.
Not great options. Flamestrike probably the only one.
Yeah.
But even then, I guess it could help with potentially Water Elementals later. Dragon's Fury also could do that, but yeah, I guess Dragon's
the
Fury is
cost
a
of your
guaranteed
own
8
board.
damage, but yeah, at the cost of his own board.
Not that it's going to be taken care of anytime soon. I don't think even a Flame Strike gets Glory out of this, so it's just going to be the game.
Or very close to it.
Oh yeah, Blizzard is the other way he could have survived there.
That's when the Charged Devil Sword lethal comes through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any other available outs for it.
No charging 8, yeah, not within the neutral or priest cards, so. Yeah, in this case, Glory's definitely just taking the time to plan out his later turns because he knows he has to play Blizzard to survive this turn. But what does he need to draw into to make the game go on one turn longer after that? And frankly, I'm not sure, but slowly he's been picking apart Ender's board. So a Flame Strike top deck after this will be able to clear most things up. Of course, Ender will probably heal the Operative out of range. But then Glory still has some minions. So it depends on whether Ender can find either lethal or something sticky off of the Free from Amber.
Is there ever a world where you mind control the plated beetle?
Um,
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's a little too cute. Because you know he has another one. I think it's just you try and make the biggest. Charged Devil Sword would be.
Right. Oh, there's Turtle and Primalist, not Battle Cry. Not having its Battle Cry for the fun lethal, but cute card still.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were really just going through the motions here because Glory's been playing from behind all game, and that is really the strength of Spiteful Priest for you. Yeah, that's just gonna be it. Okay, Alex Raza for 15, and then you'll trade into 3 minions. Still leaves 17.
And
the
be
player
at-
beetle puts you to 18.
So you can still survive,
Okay.
but then your Alex Strauss gets mind controlled.
And then you're sad.
And then you're sad because then you play Frosted Janitor and you're still dead.
Uh-huh.
So while Glory can buy himself one more turn, surviving at 1 health, it feels like it's nearly impossible for him to win the game from this scenario.
It really emphasizes how powerful Spiteful Priest can be in the late game with a combination of just huge dragons from the beginning and then Spiteful Summoner and then the cards that Spiteful Summoner benefits off of individually. There's just almost no end to the threats. And then you can even operative into some crazy things when you're falling too far behind.
Yeah.
So at some point the mage just runs out of answers, even though when you look at the deck list you're like, wow, all this AoE, you got Meteor, you got Polymorph as well, it's still too much. The priest is too much for the mage to deal with.
And they're actually even going to not even go for this mind control, but instead just present even more threats, heal up his board a little bit, just sort of a little bit of a safer play. And again, put Glory at 1, and I think this time there's no outs.
Dragon's Fury into 7 cost. Yeah, he still can't ping off both the Drake and the Sea Giant, even if he gets 7 and trades Alex Raza.
Yeah.
So that is officially the game. I don't think there's a legendary at 8 mana or less that can help him here.
Definitely
Or
not
even-
Auction Master Beardo. And Ender takes the series 3-1 over Glory, continuing this run through the winner's bracket.
Yeah, and that's another knockout by an ANZ player onto a greater APAC. I mean greater by like the rest of APAC because ANZ is within APAC.
Yeah.
A lot of discrepancy there. And I feel like people use SEA, APAC, ANZ interchangeably in the wrong ways sometimes. But yeah,
Whoa!
not you in particular.
I know.
I know you've been here a lot of time
Yes.
in APAC. But yeah,